Are you ready?
You're ready.
Are you sweaty?
No, I said no sweat jokes.
That's what this entire recording is gonna be. It's just talking about sweat. Talking about Sweat and Soap, to be particular, by Kanetsu Yamada. So we've both read the first volume of this work, and I gotta say, I have a lot of thoughts. I wasn't expecting this from a shoujo manga to kind of go on such a roller coaster of emotions with the story. I guess that's what you should expect. But
that's literally what a shoujo manga is, a roller coaster of emotions.
But it was more of like a roller coaster of my perception where, just spoiler, at the beginning I did not like this manga at all. And then as time went on, I definitely started grooving with it more and really liked it. I would describe the series as kind of having a rocky first chapter with a lot of heart, but kind of some weird parts. And then just over time, it just becoming the most endearing office romance I've ever read.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. What were your kind of like just big impressions of the series?
I think, so I read it the first time, I've read it twice. The first time, I didn't like it at all. I just read it because I felt like reading a manga. And then the second time I read it while actually looking at it. And yeah, I liked it the second time. I liked it a lot. There are parts that I don't like. I'm not super into the sweat fetish. It isn't for me. But the rest of it I think is kind of nice.
The sweat / smelling of sweat is definitely a barrier of entry for this series. I'm kind of with you. I had to sort of look past it, and I've definitely got some points for discussion about what that is. But when the first time that you read it, did you read it all the way through?
Yeah, I read it all the way through past the first volume. I read into the second volume.
Okay, I'm interested to read the second volume, actually, so I stopped at the first volume. But the first time that I read it, I was just flipping through it in a bookstore. So I read the first chapter, and that's kind of the first chapter that kind of turned me off to it. So let's just dive into the plot a bit. We've got, I don't know the male character's name. The girl's name is Asako.
Notori is his name.
Notori, thank you. So we've got our main girl who has a complex about her smelly, sweaty body. And it originates from her childhood, even. When her classmates didn't used to call her Asako. They used to call her a stinko.
Oh, wow. That is the perfect translation, isn't it?
It is. I love trying to reverse engineer these kind of English localizations. So I pulled up my Japanese dictionary. I'm looking for the word smelly. So smelly in Japanese is kusai. So I'm pretty sure they were calling her Akusako.
No. In what I read, it just said that they called her Aseko.
Oh, okay.
Sweaty girl.
Oh,
sweat girl.
Because it's the ase. Oh yeah, you're right. So it's not the smell. That's funny that I thought of it the wrong way. So they were making fun of her because she was sweaty, not necessarily because she's smelly.
But I think it follows she was sweaty and dirty and gross. Little girl. And they bullied her.
They bullied her ruthlessly.
And so she has such low confidence in herself stemming from her childhood bullies.
And this isn't an uncommon kind of character setup for the female setup in a shoujo manga. You often see these stories where there's some sort of childhood trauma or childhood complex that kind of lingers. Of course, a lot of the stories take place in high school, so that hasn't had a long time to develop. But I did think it was interesting that she definitely has her whole body odor situation under control.
Under control.
Yes.
Big time.
But emotionally, she still hasn't really gotten past it. It's very clear that it's still a sticking point for her, and she gets very embarrassed and all that. Does it just jump right into, what was his name?
Well, this is one of the problems. Notori.
Okay, Notori, yeah.
This is one of the problems. I don't know if they thought this story had longevity. I think they might have rushed it.
It was a one-shot. The first chapter is a one-shot.
And they didn't repurpose it at all to make it the full volume? They just
yes,
took it out?
That is the one-shot.
Oh, makes so much sense.
Exactly. That's why the second chapter is sort of a refresh, and it kind of goes back in time a bit.
Ah.
I know. It was so funny because I was not very forgiving to the first chapter the first time that I read it, but by the time I got to the end of the first volume and realized it was a one-shot, all of my issues with the pacing of the chapter and kind of the way that they set up the drama of the chapter made perfect sense in a one-shot setting. It does feel awkward at the beginning of this volume, though.
It does totally. I'm not sure if I'm getting ahead of myself, but like part of the reason I didn't like it, why didn't they go further with her thinking that Notori was a smelling pervert guy and that she should not get involved with him?
Yeah,
but it's all coming together.
So it's the beginning. I'm trying to remember the story beats at the beginning of the chapter. Is it literally like, "Hi, I'm Asako," and then just snap cut to him invading her personal space, smelling her, like a really like getting on this girl in a workplace scenario where he's kind of in more of a position of authority than her, where he's sort of on the design.
They're in different departments. It's okay.
It's
not against company regulations. There's nothing wrong with their relationship.
What happens at the beginning is wrong. Usually, like when you're at. I mean, see, that's the tricky thing, because I feel like if the main girl was more sexually mature, she would have kind of realized that she was in a more sexual situation. But I feel like in the beginning, she rationalizes how uncomfortable she is, right? With this idea that she's helping the soap-making process.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he literally says, "Our company depends on you letting me smell you."
Like, you're right. He's not technically in a position of authority, but it's just like a male coworker invading your personal space, saying that, like, I have to invade your personal space for my process. I feel like he gets a pass just because he's kind of like a handsome male protagonist in a shoujo manga. And it really comes to a climax, of course, because really what happens in the first chapter is he takes it too far, right? He starts reaching under her skirt, goes into like attack mode, basically, because I don't know, he can't control himself around smells.
Around her smells.
Oh yeah, because her smell's so special.
It's true love.
It was love at first sniff, you know?
Love at first scent.
So she starts hearing in the news about someone who's smelling other women and groping other women on trains, and she starts to think, wow, this sure sounds like a guy that I know.
But then she immediately expels it. She's like, no, he's a good guy.
He loves
not
soaps.
Like a smelly train pervert.
And then they actually show the smelly train pervert later, and he's just this fat Japanese businessman, not like a cool suave Snope designer.
Obviously, the smelling train pervert would be attracted to Asako's smelly, sweaty body.
He smelled her across the train.
And also her big boobs. That was specifically mentioned.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like her coworkers said that there is a smelling pervert, but they only go after girls with big boobs, right? And she like looks down.
She's the perfect target. It just that moment, I very specifically compared his introduction to the train sniffer's introduction, right? And it's exactly...
But the train sniffer's gross.
No, but that's the hilarious thing, is that, like, the male characters' actions at the beginning are kind of gross. Like, that invasion of personal space is creepy.
Big time.
Yeah, exactly. And... basically, I guess what this is building to is that there's just such a weird parallel between Natori and then the train smeller. He comes in and saves her, of course, which is a horrible shoujo trope where the girl is about to get sexually assaulted or raped, and then our male hero bursts in and says, "Not on my watch."
and puts his arm next to her while they lean against the side of the train until he can walk her home.
Boy, you're really setting the stage there, but I feel like I've seen that scene like 10 times.
I mean, yeah, it's in every single shoujo. Like, every single one. Like, it would be hard to find one without that.
And at the end, she's all in, and then they go back to, I believe, his place and have sex for the first time, and then that's the end of the volume.
It's definitely her place the first time. And then the second time, it's his place.
Yeah. The scene when she was first in his apartment was really cute. But I guess before we move on, just to close out this chapter, that's kind of why I was initially averse to the series. Mm-hmm. Just this weird office romance. I had a really tough time with this series, trying to put myself into the mindset of the girl. Part of that's because she's incredibly passive, and I have a hard time role playing as someone like that. You know, I relate a lot more to the male character, especially the way that he acts at work. You know, that's the more of the type that I am. But also, I mean, there's so many levels here. It's like it's hard because of her personality, but then there's the smell fetish as well, and there's this constant question in my head of, Would I want to be the smell-y or the smeller?
The smeller.
Exactly. Like, honestly, I don't think I fit into any part of this fetish. I was trying to. I was like, I wouldn't want to be smelled. I understand her kind of...
Absolutely not.
Right.
But if I had to choose, I'm the smeller.
I'm the smeller, right? That's exactly what I thought.
Who wants to be smelled? I don't think anyone likes that. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating. That's part of the fetish.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, that she gets so embarrassed and worked up.
Okay. Speaking of embarrassed and worked up, one part of the story that I do like is Asuko's mortified look every time that he smells her. That I think is so funny. Her face.
The art is absolutely amazing. I love the way that both of the characters look, by the way. I definitely like Asako more than Natori with kind of like their general look, but just because Asako is probably one of the best looking shoujo heroines I've seen in a while. Not only that she's curvy, which is a really, interesting, you don't see it all the time, right?
Do you? I don't know.
No, you don't. I will just think about the manga. Usually people, I mean, it probably is just
different.
Reflective.
This isn't just shoujo. This is like, I don't know what the correct word for it is, but it's like for adult women shoujo.
I think technically the term is josei. That's what I've heard before.
But is it? It's not. Okay, yeah, it's josei.
That's actually something that I wanted to talk about, which is kind of the rating. So I was looking at Kodansha's website, and they have the rating as 16 plus. I think that's a fair age, but I was kind of comparing some of the sex scenes rarely last beyond, I would say, one page, and it's never really graphic. Like no private parts are showing, no nipples are shown. It's hardly
even like the full shape of the breast is showing. It's always just like partially showing anything.
Partially obscured, right? And I was kind of...
No full frontal nudity.
But I was kind of comparing it to some other shoujo manga, and I feel like it's completely in line. Like, shoujo manga rarely shy away from sex. If anything, that's kind of part of the genre, is that a lot of series will kind of dive into... girls' first sexual experiences and other such topics. But I don't know. I was kind of expecting it to get a little bit like more graphic, racier. I guess. Yeah, because it was kind of pitched as like a more adult romance, but it's really not. The adult part of the story is more of their relationship that it develops into, right? Where their relationship with each other is very mature, and they are in an office scenario. Yeah,
I thought more the scenario where they're working.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason that it would be josei versus just a girls manga shoujo.
So the chapters afterwards, I don't have as much to say about after the one shot, other than I really enjoyed them. I mean, just like after that first chapter and any sort of apprehensions that I had after the first chapter, by the third chapter, they are officially in a relationship, officially dating. And then after that, it's just a bunch of cute scenarios with them kind of like getting frisky at work and their first date, cooking at his house, her getting a little bit jealous. You know, it was just a kind of a fun romp after that. Was there any like particular moment that really stuck out to you in the rest of the series?
Well, after the first chapter, I thought it was really cool because they actually let Natori have his own thought bubbles. Mm-hmm. So you don't only see Asiko's thoughts, you also can read his, which isn't usual. Normally it's like the mysterious male character who you can't quite read. Yeah, that's like the whole story. But in this one, you just know what he's thinking. You know what both of they are thinking. You know what the problem is. And you're just waiting for them to fix it and be honest with each other.
I was going to say that I feel like this series starts out as a sweat and smell fetish series, but then it later develops into a, how should I phrase this, like emotional communication fetish series where the two of them
what women crave.
What women crave, right? Because you know what this manga, the romantic fantasy that it ends up portraying, the guy is constantly trying to fully understand where the girl is coming from, right? Not only is he tipped off by her smells, he can somehow smell her happiness or sadness. It's his emotional shoujo protagonist superpower. But also, he's really forward and direct, and he wants to make sure that he understands how she's feeling, and he kind of really works with the part of her that wants to hide how she's feeling and to kind of push down any sort of negative emotions. Definitely the chapter that this came out most to me was in the last one, where she sees him interacting with some of his coworkers, and although she completely logically understands that he's not being flirtatious or cheating with them, she still felt a little bit of a rise of jealousy. And initially she tries to hide this from him because she's embarrassed about these feelings, which is perfectly in line with her character traits, right?
Mm-hmm. And she like ignores his phone calls, kind of a thing. And
exactly. There's the great scene where she's trying to hide that she cried last night about it. And he kind of notices that something seems off, so he asks her, and she's so tricky. She admits that she cried, but she lies and says that it was about a cat video, that there's this really cute but sad cat video that makes her all teary-eyed. And then he starts doing this like fourth dimensional analysis of the cat video where he starts thinking like, you know, this cat video is pretty cute and I can understand why she'd feel sad initially, but ultimately it's an uplifting story, so shouldn't she be smelling happy right now?
It should be more on the happiness side of the scale of smells
the smell
and
spectrum.
Emotions.
Yeah, that's really what the kind of, I feel like that's what the true romantic fantasy develops into. It's this guy who's completely keyed into her emotion and wants to completely understand her, and it's what women crave, right? That they want their boyfriends to be understanding and to be attentive to their emotions. This guy just gets an incredible one-up on every other male in existence by being able to literally smell her emotions.
Yeah, I mean, I think Natori is great. He's hardworking. He's respected in the workplace. He's talented. He was a creep. He's definitely a pervert. But they have stuff in common. I think that's nice. Like, even in the first chapter, like, yeah, he starts off gross because he's literally just smelling a stranger randomly. It seemed like it was on the street at first, but they were like in their office building. But then they like sit down and they have lunch, and they do this thing where it's like they're obviously talking to each other and they have a great time during lunch, and they like skip to the end of the lunch, and you can see that they just like enjoy each other's company because they love soap so much.
Yeah, I want to continue seeing them kind of develop beyond just the soap thing, because they definitely, as the story goes on, they definitely have more shared experiences. I'm thinking definitely of the cooking chapter where she really wants to cook for him, right? That one was really cute. I think the chapter was called something like Good Sweat, or like the good kind of sweat.
Yeah.
And I related to that chapter so much, because it's really true that when you're getting busy and you're really working hard and you really are sweating to kind of make someone else happy, it is the best feeling, right? It feels so good.
Especially when they are appreciative, which he is afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, he loves everything she does.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because I really wonder where the series is going to go from here. I think that the mangaka is definitely leaving a few kind of like little plot points, right? For how the relationship could develop. There was that female character who is kind of the Notori's like equal at work, who's way stricter than him, kind of a rival
office lady.
almost. Yeah. So
Sexy, scary office lady.
Yeah, what's her deal, huh? When's she gonna come up?
Yeah, she must be coming back. Because they have the person under him as well as a character. And she's just coming in at the end of the story, at the end of the first volume.
Ah, that's interesting. Maybe they're gonna introduce another romance.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm always interested with seeing how shoujo manga progress kind of volume to volume, because really, especially in a series like this where it really felt to kind of like lay all its cards bare in the first chapter, with it being a one-shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or initially a one-shot that was expanded to a full series. You really start wondering, like, where can these characters go from here? And I definitely think that there's more to develop with Asako. I think that she can kind of develop more and become more comfortable with her body, the way that she interacts with other people, right? But I wonder kind of what Notori's development is going to be later. Like, does he even have a character flaw?
No, like that's what I was trying to say. Like, he's an all-around great guy, great personality. He's really nice to Asako, but his only flaw is that he's a smelly pervert. And he wants to smell her all the time in public. And he does have conflict with that, at least. I mean, they do go into that. He's not totally okay with himself being this way.
You calling him a pervert is so funny.
I mean, you know, pervert, it's not necessarily negative, right?
Yeah. No, you're totally right though. Like, he has sex on the mind. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I think that's kind of all I really have to say about the series. Honestly, like I said, I started not liking this book, but I'm a Sweat and Soap fan now. I'm Sweat and Soap, you know? I'm all in.
I will read more. I will read until it goes bad. And boring.
You know, it might end before then.
It might.
Shoujo manga can frequently be delightfully short.
Mm-hmm. There were things I was thinking about while reading it. I think that it's nice that you say that Asako isn't very... You don't, like, put yourself in her shoes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think lots of girls have, like, the imposter syndrome kind of thing. She doesn't think she belongs in her workplace because she feels like she's gross and she's working in, like, a beautiful soap industry. She has, like, self-confidence issues. She thinks she's letting her employer down. But when you actually, like, see her interact with her boss thinks she's doing a great job. Like, when she does a bad job that in one chapter, he mentions it as, like, this isn't like you don't make these kinds of errors. So I think it has a long way to go with, like, her gaining self-confidence. I think that would be the end goal for the series.
That's true.
Also, I liked, like, so the whole thing is throughout the volume, it's just them going through the ups and downs, right? Like, they're not being honest with each other, and they're both sad, and then they come together, they talk to each other, and they're like, I understand the situation now, and we will work together to go through it. And like Natori literally describes the catharticism in shoujo manga like word for word. Yeah, it was when he was talking about that cat video. Even if the story gets sad at one point, the positive turn of events should relieve the viewer of any built-up stress.
The mangaka's kind of tipping his hand there a little bit, like, yep, this is what I'm doing to you right now. Yeah, I did really appreciate how maturely they approached the kind of whatever little squabbles that they got into in their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the resolution by at least the most issues were resolved within the chapter, or at least like early next chapter, which can be a lot better than some shoujo manga, which will string out miscommunications for chapter upon chapter.
Oh god.
I know, right? You as the reader know what the issue is, but the characters won't talk about it.
Yeah, they're too stubborn.
Usually because they're high schoolers, and it's a manga that takes place in high school, so they kind of get a pass, but it is frustrating as a reader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice that they have this out of maturity where they have to be honest because he can smell the dishonesty.
He can smell dishonesty a mile away. Sometimes the relationship was so cute and just fun to read along to. I almost forgot that it was a smell fetishist story, and the smelling parts would come back, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm reading sweat soap.
Yeah, after that first chapter, that was the smell-heavy chapter. And the rest of it still has smells, but it's just, I feel like it goes in different directions as well.
For sure, it definitely, the smell's not, see, that's the thing, when you're writing a one-shot, it makes sense to kind of pump up the premise, right, where you're just going all out, like,
what am I trying to say about this? What am I drawing and what am I writing about?
Exactly, but then when you've got a series, it makes more sense to kind of base that out. If every chapter was cramming the smell fetish in as the first chapter, this would be a very different and...
Yeah, that wouldn't be a shoujo manga, would it?
Okay. I think that's pretty much it. Other than saying that, I guess I have two final points. The first of which is, being someone who works in an office, the office scenes were very relatable. I love them all. It's just too real, especially her interactions with her boss. By the way, I loved her boss's design. He's a very dapper looking. Yeah.
He kind of stood out, but in a nice way.
Yeah, it was kind of nice to see that the mangaka, he has like range with the type of drawing, you know? And I just spoiled my second point. I don't know if you know this, but the author, Kentetsu Yamada, is a male.
Man. I would have had no idea. Like when you said he, I was like,
Yes.
But it makes sense, doesn't it?
It perfectly makes sense.
Those humiliated faces on Asako.
It's all coming back. I think you're just so perceptive when you notice that the male was thinking, like you could see the male protagonist's thoughts as well.
Yeah, you can read his thoughts, yeah. We have two main characters in the end. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm always interested to see kind of a guy's take on shoujo, or like on this style of drawing. It's a very shoujo style story, regardless of kind of like what age it's going for. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just really interested. Believe it or not, also, so the author, he's been writing a bunch of one-shots. He even won an award recently, but this is his first series.
I hope he has some longevity to it. I'm not a writer, so I don't know how much further you can go with specifically the smell-related stuff, but I'm sure he's got some ideas. Otherwise, I don't know why he would write this.
I know you read it. The afterward at the end, he complains about how he's totally out of ideas and he doesn't know where to take the story, and he's like, he was even...
Well, that's the thing. It turns from a smelling fetish shoujo to just a shoujo.
I'm all for it. I wasn't really a fan of the smelly stuff. My favorite chapter about that involves smell was the chapter of her getting sweaty while cooking, and that's just because I like cooking. That's the only reason why. I don't even like, just one final thought. I've always had really strong allergic reactions to perfumes, soaps. So I also feel that I don't relate to this on multiple sides. It's like I don't want to smell sweat. I don't mind the smell of sweat, but I don't attribute it anything, right? It's just sweat.
You've never smelled the sweaty kind of sweat that Asuka's sweat is. She has a condition. It's bad. It's not even good. He says it smells good, but I'm positive it wouldn't be.
That's another thing. Does he like the smell of her sweat, or does he like the blend of his soap covering the smell of her sweat? I constantly was questioning this the whole time.
Yeah, because even when she wears his shirt, he's smelling his own shampoo and her on the shirt.
Is he a sweat fetishist or a soap fetishist? He's definitely a soap fetishist. His entire life is soaps.
No, but I think his sniffer, his nose, is so adept at picking out specific smells that he can separate them. So he likes all the smells individually.
I think you're right there. By the way, I thought of a word for his occupation. He's a soapsmith. That's what he does.
Oh, yeah, that's cute. Well, he doesn't make the soap though. I think he makes the essential oils or something like that.
Yeah. I wonder what his background in education is. Do you go to college for becoming a soapsmith? Is there like an apprentice soapsmithery?
I'm positive. He probably did some sort of chem degree, and then he specialized in there's all the different people who are making tastes. Like, how do you make cherry without cherry? How do you make cherry smell without cherries?
Good point.
It's all chemistry. But he also makes ideas. He's not just making the smells. He's also putting together entire projects. Which is
projects and marketing materials. He's just in product. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. He's in product development. He's involved in the marketing as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was a random tangent about going way too into the details of this shoujo male protagonist life. No way. I want to keep in the soapsmith stuff. Okay. Well, I think that's all of our thoughts.
I recommend. It was nice. The first volume is worth reading.
Definitely. Definitely the first volume. I really regret buying this in ebook format because I wish I had just bought a print copy. I would gladly have this on my shelf. I think it's a great series. Yeah. I want to recommend it to my friends. I want to let people borrow it. Yeah. I might just buy a print copy. I might just buy this twice. Be a total simp for manga,
Oh my god, manga simp.